Well, good evening, and welcome back to Winterthur. My name's Mike Gray, and I'm a pastor in the city here. I've been making videos since I think it was sometime back in March. And I just kind of look back over the videos that I've made since then, and one thing that kind of struck me is how often I've talked about fear and anxiety, which are, life issues that I have. But I wanted to talk about something different this evening. How about change of pace with fury and frustration? Specifically, the frustration and fury you feel when people, do what President George W. Bush many years ago very aptly, but I think also very accidentally called misundestimating you. Taking you less seriously than they should, and also just misunderstanding you and basically not knowing what they're talking about. By the way, while we're on the topic, and while I can try to bring this little dog on the lap, because I really need a little dog this evening to help me out. Yeah, whoa. Here we go. Whoopsie daisy. George, if you're out there watching this video and watching me trying to wrestle my dog onto my lap, I'd like to apologize because I misunderestimated you back in the day. It turns out you're way more intelligent than I gave you credit for being. Heard that a number of times. And also, you may not be a silver-tongued orator, but in comparison to certain other people I can mention, you said what you believed, and you believed what you said. And even when you were wrong about some pretty important things, hey, Michelle Obama liked you, so you're good in my books. Actually, that's not saying enough. The right thing to do is to apologize for misunderestimating you. I'm sorry, George. And as for all the rest of the people out there watching this who aren't George W. Bush, just think it'd be kind of interesting for us to think about when do we tend to get misunderestimated? This is the evening of Pentecost Monday. I've been trying to make this video for some time and not quite succeeding, but I've been involved in about 3 different church services dealing with the story of Pentecost. And Pentecost is the story of how a bunch of guys from a place called Galilee did things that nobody expected them to do, in part because people didn't expect much of anything good or intelligent of people who came from that part of the Aramaic world. But even more because they did things that absolutely nobody could have done anyway. Why do people misunderestimate you? Well, if you're one of Jesus' disciples, one of the people involved in the Pentecost story, they misunderestimate you because of where you came from. You came from this place called Galilee. And as everybody knew back then, Galileans are not the sharpest notes on the clef. You ever heard the joke about the bilingual Galilean? Yeah, he was stupid in 2 languages at the same time. The people involved in the story of Pentecost were pretty used to getting misunderestimated. Or maybe you get misunderestimated because you are like my pastor colleague, Scotty, who works in an English-speaking church up in the city of St. Gallen. They misunderestimate you because you're an American black Creole Reformed church minister in Switzerland, and your wonderful Swiss people just keep on encouraging you to just, Scotty, feel free to be you. Just feel free to do more of those sermons that we're sure you really want to do, them rootin', tootin', Pentecostal rap battle sermons, because, that is what, an American black guy wants to do, right? And if you're Scotty, you're like, how many times do I have to freaking explain that not all black American guys even like rap? You know, some of us might actually prefer iambic pentameter. Or maybe you get misunderestimated because you're a middle-aged white dude. And yes, as a middle-aged white dude, you know that you are privileged. And I am. My lifestyle's incredible. But why is it that I keep getting browbeat about talking openly about the privileges that I enjoy by people who are even more privileged than I've ever been, and more specifically, the people who back 15, 20 years ago, when I was trying to find any kind of a place in this country, the people who were doing everything they possibly could to make that impossible for me. The people who just love to say, yeah, Mike, we're really sorry, but we're just a little bit too elite for, someone with your kind of background. We just don't really think you'd fit in here. Right, despite everything you did to lock me out of the game, I still earned a doctorate that you didn't even want to let me take a chance at. Summa cum laude, my ad. Thank you very much. And after all of that, now you're going to turn around and rag on me for being the man, for being more privileged than I ought to be? Oh my gosh, you guys, give me a break. Oh, look, sorry, I was maybe just getting a little bit emotional about some of that stuff. And you know what? If you don't like it, deal with it. Because being misunderestimated is something that all of us have to deal with. The question is where? Where are the places in your life where people tend to misunderestimate you? Let me tell you about one person who doesn't misunderestimate me. Oh, you know what? Speaking of misunderestimate, I think I misunderestimated your capacity for chewing on things. Little dog, thank you very much for giving that back. Here, where are the treats? I'll be right back to you guys. Sorry, but I've got a dog to take care of here. Here, here's a treat. Can you sit down? Sit. Sit. And Platz. Excellent. Hey, that's great. So, you know who doesn't misunderestimate you? Well, to go by the story of Pentecost, it's the Holy Spirit. Because what the Holy Spirit made of those men and women on the day of Pentecost, it doesn't just go beyond whatever people thought that folks from Galilee could or couldn't do. It went way beyond anything that any human being ever could do. What we see happening at Pentecost is this divine act, a bolt from the blue, a jolt of adrenaline to every human system of privilege or marginalization. This miracle that instills a level of, that creates a whole new playing field where people can interact and understand each other and communicate and begin to respect each other who would never, ever have been on the same page if God hadn't broken open everything that they ever thought they knew about the world and the way the world works. A dynamic which, by the by, I've been experiencing pretty regularly throughout this corona crisis. In a very special way at the assisted living facility, the retirement home, Wiesengrund, where I work as a chaplain. Because if we are going to talk about the pleasures of being misunderestimated, let's definitely not forget some of the people who get more misunderestimated than much of anyone else in our society. Old people, the kind of folks that I'm there to help care for at the Wiesengrund. Because everyone knows that, the day you hit 65, with every passing year, your stick in the mud quotient rises by 3%. Because everybody knows that the kind of music that old people like to listen to is Bach, because, I mean, Bach's old and they're old, so hey, yeah. It all fits, doesn't it? Because everyone knows that old people aren't smart. Because everyone knows that the one part of society you don't have to innovate for is the old people part of society, because, I mean, hey, why bother? Right? The way we misunderestimate old people is amazing. Also, the way we misunderestimate institutions that work for old people and the kind of people who choose to work in said institutions is frightening. Let me tell you something. Back around Easter, back when it seemed like everybody else was trying to figure out what the word webcam even means, the retirement home called me up and said, "Hey, Mike, we understand that you're doing some of that YouTube stuff. Why don't you make a YouTube video? Come on over. Why don't you make a YouTube video for Easter? Because we think it'd be really good for our folks to have an Easter service. You can't come and do it in person, so do it online. And lots of our people actually have internet, and they'll be able to watch. And you know, the ones that don't, we can either help them out, or if they don't have a device at all, we've got tablets, and so we'll take the tablets to them so they can watch." So, Easter Sunday morning, I sat down and made, I think, the most fun and exciting Easter service I have ever made in my entire life. Most satisfying. And also, of all the videos I've made throughout these Corona times, that is the one. The one I made specifically in German for the old folks. That's the one that got the most hits on YouTube. Go old folks. Let's talk about something. I'm going to just see if I can make my own picture get little and throw in some footage that I took on my cell phone about 10 days ago. About 10 days ago, Evelyn, the woman who's responsible for most of the programs we do there, she called me up and said, listen, I know it's Monday and not a whole lot of time left, but, you usually do a church service on Wednesdays, and we still don't think you can do that yet because of the regulations and stuff. But, nobody said you can't do an open air. So, Mike, what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to come, find a good musician, a good pianist, which I was able to do. That was a woman called Mariam Pogosian. And we'd like you to do an open-air church service Wednesday afternoon. And then she said, now, I mean, that's a day and a half. That's more than enough time for you to take care of that, isn't it, Mike? Hey, when the Wiesengrün calls me up and asks me to do something, I have one answer. Yes. Thank you very much. I'll figure it out. And so they took care of the PA system, and I got an e-piano, and a day and a half later, we were doing my very first open-air church service in the garden of a retirement home. The weather was incredible. The people loved it. The organization was phenomenal. The staff were moving between the tables and keeping an eye on things, bringing drinks to old folks. After I was done, there was ice cream for everybody. I had to leave, so I didn't get any. I don't know if I have ever done a church service that was more creative, more chaotic, and more satisfying. We misunderestimate so many people. We are misunderestimated, and we misunderestimate others. The message of Pentecost is that God doesn't do that. God esteems us enough to give us His Spirit. Give us the power, the creativity, the good ideas to do things that no one would ever have thought us able to do. That's Pentecost. When stuff happens that breaks open all of our normal conceptions about who is who and who isn't who. When the Spirit of the Lord comes upon us, and Americans turn out to be multilinguals, and teenagers turn out to be thoughtful, intelligent Homo sapiens, and old folks show up on the internet and start doing stuff that us youngsters had never even thought of doing. So, it's Pentecost evening. Let's finish celebrating Pentecost with a bang. It'll be tomorrow morning by the time I'm able to put this on the internet, because I've got some cutting work to do. But may the Lord bless us and keep us. In fact, may the Holy Spirit of Pentecost bless us and maybe actually not keep us, but give us that occasional kick in the ass that moves us out of our comfort zones into that place where miracles happen. Into that place where we realize that we've even been misunderestimating ourselves. But God never did.